Let us now settle into a spirit of worship with our prelude this morning, Chacone by Cliff Harden. You are also invited to light a silent candle of joy or sorrow at this time. It is a horribly wonderful thing to run out of orders of service. And I apologize to you this morning that did not receive one upon entering. If you would like to be able to access one by technology, if you'd see Sherry Lynn, she has the access for that. Otherwise, I hope that you would reach across the aisle with each other or across the pew and share your orders of service. Okay, so if you want to anyone? Bueller? All right. So I want to share with you the words of my colleague and friend Marta Valentine this morning as our chalice lighting. I'm going to add a couple of words of my own. We pause this morning from the chaos of the world to reclaim the beauty within these walls that carry us through the week. We lift this church, this congregation, this community onto our shoulders with pride and grace-filled expectations for our children and our children's children.
Good morning. My name is Ooh, I'm supposed to do this. My name is Robin Mitskovich, and I am the Director of Religious Exploration and Education here at UUCW. Welcome, everybody. Every couple of years, we have a coming of age program where our adult mentors are teamed with middle school students, and they go through a wonderful year of self-discovery and becoming a part of our community in a more spiritual and deep way. This morning, I would like to announce our 2021-22 Coming of Age class. George Bajoun and Ken Basie. Halo Durr and Rachel Keogh. Vernon Dival and Bruce Lachey. Chloe Hudson, who is absent today, but her mentor is here, Jenny Delgizzi. Balin Locantora and Brian Keogh. Simon Murphy and Bart Hill. Sarah Napoleoni and Cheryl Lachey. Air Stevenson Sweeney and Lee Johnson Erickson. Leo Sweetser and Lee Hill. Amaya Turner Clark and Beckley Showalter. Becca Wagner and Deb Zawelski. We almost can't fit them all up here. That's a good problem to have. Congratulations on embarking on this new journey, and welcome to COA 21-22. You may be seated up front here.
As we join together in our opening hymn, number 1051 in your teal hymnals, I want to invite all of our children to join Robin if you're here in the sanctuary for our religious exploration program this morning. And the rest of you, would you please rise in body or in spirit? That's born, morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of the ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage and fathers of time. We are daughters of dusk and sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy and faith. We are lovers of life and builders of nations. We're makers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers. We are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. Our mothers of courage and fathers of time. We are daughters of dust and sons of great visions. We're seekers of truth. We are brothers of love. We are lovers of I don't think Matt needs a choir, he needs a congregation. We are the choir. And for that reason, all of you should join the choir on Sunday morning, right? A good thing, a good thing. I want to welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Worcester on this gorgeous fall day, which makes me wonder, why are you here? But I know why. This is one of those remarkable Sundays where between the coming of age program and child dedications and honoring the work of suicide prevention and a conversation after church about our own name, it's a free-for-all. And each are here for their own reasons, and we're delighted you're here for whatever reason that you've come this morning, especially our coming of age class. It is a delight to see you all, and I'm so pleased that you're here. For those of you who are new with us this morning, if you desire a large print order of service or large print hymnals, please see one of our ushers. They will help you with that. Please note that this service is being live streamed on Facebook and is on Zoom and will be made available in the coming weeks on our own congregation YouTube channel, as well as our website archive for those who missed the service this morning and want to view it at a later time. Following the service this morning, I hope that if you're new with us, you'll join us for a fellowship hour out underneath the tent, where we will meet and greet each other with great exuberance, because it is nice to be back. And I will tell you that in the coming days, the health and safety team of the congregation will be meeting. Those of us in Worcester understand that we are under a mask mandate, except for those who are speaking. And I'm so pleased that all of you have been willing to come and protect each other and those who are most vulnerable because of not having access to the vaccine yet. We will continue to keep you updated in the days and weeks to come. So welcome this morning. I'm so glad that you're here with us. Please join us after church for an opportunity for refreshment. And then those of you who would like to engage in our town hall listening session regarding the name change will be invited back here in the sanctuary. Those of you who are online with us this morning, we'll keep you online following the service for fellowship hour virtually, and then invite those of you who want to listen in on and participate in the listening session to do so on Zoom as well. Our opening words this morning. These are the words of my friend Kathleen McTeague. Here in the refuge of this Sabbath home, we turn our busy minds toward silence and our full hearts toward one another. We move together through the mysteries of bright surprise of birth and the shadowed questions of death. In our slow walk between the two, we will be wounded and we will be showered with grace, amazing and unending. Even in our sorrows, we feel our lives cradled in the holiness we cannot comprehend. And though we each walk within a vast loneliness, the promise we offer here is that we do not walk alone. This is a holy place in which we gather. The light of the earth brought in and held, touched then by our answering light, the flame on the chalice, the flicker of a candle, the lamps of our own faces brought near. In this place of silence and celebration, solemnity and music, we make a sanctuary and name our home.
We're here where the daylight begins. Fog on the street light slowly thins. Water on water's the way. The safety of shoreline fading away. Sail your sea, meet your storm. All I want is to be your harbor. Light in me will guide you home. All I want is to be your harbor. Fear is the brightest of signs, shape of the boundaries you leave behind. So sing all your questions to sleep. The answers are out there in the drowning deep. Sail your sea, meet your storm. All I want is to be your harbor. Light in me will guide you home. All I want is to be your harbor. You've got a journey to make. There's your horizon to chase. So go far beyond where you stand. No matter the distance, always holding your hand. Shall you see? Meet your storm. All I want is to be your harbor. Light in me will guide you home. All I want is to be your harbor.
Would like to invite up Sherry Lynn, and if we have a representative from the Religious Exploration team, and those families who have children to be dedicated this morning.
What's up? What's up?
You have it right here. The roses. Here are the. Would the families come over on this side, please? There's no wrong side in this congregation. There's no wrong side in this congregation, and as some will attest to, we even accept Yankee fans here, right? It's like, you knew that was going to happen, right, Bart? So would you please turn in your order of service to your insert. Today is a holy day, beloved. For each day is holy when we're blessed with life beginning. We gather during this time to recognize and dedicate this new life. We gather also to celebrate the hope and wonder that is childhood, to dedicate ourselves to the rich fulfillment of all that which learning and care bring forth. In so doing, we recognize the mystery of life as it begins its unfolding, and we celebrate this mystery in song and word and prayer and promise. Our gift is that of love freely given. With reverence and respect, we dedicated ourselves to the task of parenting and nurturing. So do we promise to love unconditionally and to strengthen the bonds of friendship. Would you please join in our responsive reading? Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. You can give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you. For life does not go backward nor tarries with yesterday. The archer sees the mark upon the path of the infinite, and he bends you with his might so that his arrows may go swift and far.
Parents who have come forth this morning, dedicate yourselves to the care and nurture of your children. In love freely given, provide for them, protect them, encourage their worthy endeavors as they journey forth in a life that is unique and special. To share with them all that love and joy and blessings have to offer.
And do you, the godparents and grandparents and family who have come forth this morning, dedicate yourselves to care and nurture for these children in love freely given, and to support these parents, to embrace them as family, to encourage their growth as they journey forth into a life that is unique and special, to share with them all that love, joy, and blessings have to offer. Would the congregation please rise in body or in spirit? Go ahead and lead it then. Without knocking the place over, thank you very much.
Please join me. We, the members and
friends
friends of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Worcester, welcome you and your children. We hereby pledge ourselves to support, provide for, and nurture these children. We dedicate ourselves to providing all that is necessary for these children to grow to their fullest potential as unique and precious lives within the bonds of this loving community.
Please be seated. Would you come forward, come over here, just hold that for me, actually. I'll just hold it. Take yours. Sweetie pie. What name do you give this child? Desmond Greenleaf Stutzman, with water, ancient symbol of purity, I anoint you and dedicate you to the source of your being. I proclaim now that you are loved by parents and family and friends, that you are, to all who know you and will come to know you, precious. May your life be filled with joy and blessings now and from this day forward. Go ahead.
May this rose in all its beauty stand as a symbol of this precious life and its unfolding in love and understanding.
May I? Sweet pie. Here. You guys come with me. What name do you give this child?
Mason Joseph Lenahan.
Mason Joseph Lenahan. With water, ancient symbol of purity, I anoint you and dedicate you to the source of your being. I proclaim now that you are loved by parents and family and friends, that you are to all who know you and come to know you precious. May your life be filled with joy and blessings now and from this day forward.
May this rose in all its beauty stand as a symbol of this precious life and the unfolding in love and understanding.
What name do you give this child? Victor David Cruz. With water, ancient symbol of purity, I anoint you and dedicate you to the source of your being. I proclaim now that you are loved by family and friends and parents, that you are to all who will know you and come to know you precious. May your life be filled with joy and blessings now and from this day forward. Whatever.
May this rose in all its beauty stand as a symbol of this precious life and unfold in love and understanding.
Friends, please welcome our newest member. Congratulations. Well done. Come here. One for you. And one for you.
This on?
You wonder with a beard or a mask, whether or not the child looking at you was like, your head is on upside down. Right? You know, it's very possible. You know? I want to welcome this morning Jessica Vanderstadt, who is the executive director of the regional executive director for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and welcome you here this morning. This is our 50/50 collection for this month, in preparation for Mental Health Awareness Month and in honor of the ongoing work of the foundation in order to prevent suicide in our region. I want to welcome Jessica here this morning and have her share for a few minutes about the work that the foundation does. Please.
Oh, how do I follow the children? My heart. Thank you so much. I just want to start by saying, as was said, my name is Jessica. I'm with the Massachusetts chapter of the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Hello to everyone online. I'm glad you could be here today. Thank you for welcoming me into this community. You know, oftentimes when I'm asked to speak about suicide prevention, I'm not sure what I'm quite going to encounter, what the atmosphere is going to be, and for lack of better words, I love the vibe here. It is incredible. It's just absolutely beautiful. So I'm glad to be here today. You know, I am not a mental health professional. I actually never imagined a career in suicide prevention. I lost my dad to suicide in 2008. And in 2009, I saw a flyer for a walk to fight suicide. And I remember showing up at that event. It was actually in California, and not knowing what to expect, not knowing if I was going to be welcomed or if I was going to be able to share my dad's story. And what I found that day was just a community, much like what is here today, that was welcoming of my experience, of my story, of my grief, of my trauma, and was willing to help me move forward in my journey. So it's been 10 plus years, and I'm still not a mental health professional, but I do have a passion to really spread awareness, create a community that's safe about suicide, and ultimately save lives. The American Foundation for Suicide Prevention is really dedicated to saving lives and providing hope to those impacted by suicide. We focus on research, education, advocacy, and outreach and support. What that means is that we are focused on the prevention efforts, so the education awareness in the communities, and the postvention, so after an attempt or after a loss. We really focus those prevention efforts, those crisis intervention, on our community partners like the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline number, which is 1-800-273-TALK, and other groups like Samaritans, which is more local to Massachusetts. But I encourage you that if you have been personally impacted by suicide, to reach out, to get connected. We have an amazing group, not only across the state, but especially here in Worcester. We have an incredible volunteer-driven group that is really just focused on providing support. You know, with my personal story, you may have your own story as well. And I just want to let you know that more than anything, that there's a safe environment out there to get help. And if anything, if you forget everything I said this morning, I always want to leave people with 3 things. And that is, your life matters, you're not alone, and with help comes hope. So thank you again for welcoming into this community. We appreciate the donations. They'll go back to the work that we do. But more than anything, just thank you for hearing my story and allowing me to continue to spread the word that suicide prevention is possible. Thank you.
Jessica, thank you for the work that you do and for being with us this morning. As is our custom with our 50-50 Sundays, if you would like to participate in the 50-50 collection, you can donate cash, or if you're writing a check, please put 50-50 collection on the check. If your check is a pledge, please mark that appropriately so that it is counted appropriately. If you're online with us this morning, you can join us in our collection this morning by either texting 508-231-5335 or by visiting www.uucworcester.org/donate to contribute to this morning's offering. At this time, the morning offering will be received. COA, you're also welcome to go at this time if you want. We come to that time in our service when we're given pause to consider what is deepest in our hearts or most profoundly on our minds or in the work of our hands. the days that have transpired or in the prospect of days to come, joys and sorrows that touch us deeply and are given another measure of meaning because of our capacity to share them in the midst of a company that claims us as a co-journeyer. So I invite those of you who have joys or sorrows today to form lines on either side of the sanctuary, to come and speak briefly into the microphone, telling us first who you are so that those who are using our auditory enhancement devices or joining us online might also participate in this important ritual. And then to light a candle if you so desire. If you would like me to read your joy or sorrow, you may bring it up on a card. And for those of you who are online with us this morning, please know that we will turn to you at the conclusion of the spoken joys or sorrows. If anyone has a joy or sorrow on Facebook or on Zoom, you may place it in the chat, and we will make certain that it also gets mentioned. Are there joys or sorrows to be shared this day?
Now it works. My name's Laura. I come up here often. My joy is the child dedication. It's so far we're 3 boys, 0 girls. So I look forward. I didn't get to do it for Rain because she was too old, but it was awesome that my family and my friends could come. Suicide prevention is a big, huge thing in my veterinary field, both family-wise, veterinarians and veterinary professionals. So that does mean a lot to me. We did lose a 16-year-old, happy as can be, Zoe Wolfus, to suicide. She did a outreach program the day before she took her own life. It's quite often Not One More Vet is another organization for our veterinary professionals that just can't take it anymore. They can't rescue as many as they want. Everything is about money, and it's just very depressing when you're there for like 12 hours doing the best you can, and it just seems like it's not enough. So I do thank you for being here today.
So I'm Diane Mann. I turn to a mixed joy and sorrow this morning. My son got married last Sunday. Yay! And we were having a perfectly lovely reception. The food had happened. I danced a little Paul Simon, She Loves Me Like a Rock, with my son. It was great. But then the bride's mother fell down 2 steps, broke her leg in 4 places, and shattered her wrist. She is now in Fairlawn Rehab Hospital. So whatever you do, if you pray, if you send out healing whammies into the universe, whatever you do, please think good thoughts for Marge Carey this week. Thank you.
I'm Margot Stone, and I want to happy to report that we had a flea market yesterday, and we had good turnout to the public, and we raised $297 for the church.
This kite, like 14 years ago, dedicated my daughter Amaya, and today she joined COA. And it's just been such a wild, awesome ride.
Hi, I'm Andrea. Anyway, amidst all of this joy, being here, being able to sing, having my son,
Coming with another one here. Go ahead.
I want to hold a space for my friend She is 17. She lost her like 8 years ago. And thank you. I just wanted to hold a space for my friend. She's 17 now. She lost her brother to suicide 8 years ago, and she lost her mother to suicide last Tuesday.
Good morning. I'm Kate Sweetser's sister. You may recognize me because I just come into your congregation whenever I want, but with that, my niece's birthdays were Friday, so my twins turned 10, and I know my twins, right? Her kids. And who I say too, my firstborn, Vive, Leo, I'm just so proud to have all of you nurturing these children in my life. And to AJ, who's sitting next to my mother in the pew, he was the spaceman at Ferry Beach with his space fact. I'm so happy I was here on the Bible dedication.
Hi, I'm Kate Sweetser. My sister, typical little sister, stole my stuff. So, so I was just going to say that I was so excited. All of my milestone birthdays this Friday. They all share the same birthday. So the twins turned 10, and Steve turned 13, and those were just big. And we had just a really nice party with family and friends, and it was great. The weather worked out beautifully yesterday. I couldn't believe it because I'd been watching all week with all these chances of rain all day, but it was absolutely perfect and gorgeous. And friends really helped out and loaned me the stuff that I needed and made sure we had everything, and it was really nice. And it was nice to have my family here too. So that was all.
I just wanted to acknowledge at WPI, we've had 2 students commit suicide actually this semester. Thank you very much for coming. During the pandemic, my office mate actually had his son commit suicide. I can only imagine the parents actually and the fellow students. So anyways, we should keep them in our thoughts. Thanks for coming.
Hi, everyone. I'm Melissa, and I think a lot of you know my daughter, Annie. And my joy today is, and my confusion, is that she turns 22 today. I don't really believe this. I'll have to do the math, but anyway.
Hi, my name is Lynn Gastila, grandmother of that precious baby over there. Just briefly, for people in my book club and other people, I just finished reading the new book that's out, Fish Don't Really Exist. It's awesome. It's overwhelming. But part of what I come away from is the world is chaos. The world was created through chaos. Evolutionary theory that produced us. It's a result of chaos. But in the midst of that chaos, what sustains us are our webs of interrelationships that hold us up. and prevent us from sinking into the chaos. And so I thank this community for doing that for my family over the years. Thank you.
Let us be in the spirit of prayer and meditation. Spirit of life, we come today with joy in our hearts for a life beginning and for the continuing growth of our youth, for the families that sustain us and the community that surrounds us. Mindful that life is precious and that all too often pain that overwhelms affects those most vulnerable. We would commit ourselves today to making the world a place where people can name that which challenges them most in order that they might be able to find life in the midst of the challenge and life beyond the pain. Help us remember our capacity to create and recreate the bonds that sustain and hold, that cradle and soothe, and make way for more abundant being, for all that we are, for the community that we have become, and for all that we have yet to be. We give great thanks this day. Amen, and blessed be. Were there joys or sorrows online this morning that I missed by chance? Were there joys or sorrows online this morning that I missed by chance?
From Marianne Ryan, this week I was reminded of the beauty of our young adult hearts. This occurred during an after-school event where our students supported an opposing team runner by meeting this last runner out and running with them. And running with them to the finish line. So wonderful to see the genuine kindness and support. And a sorrow from Joyce. Our beloved neighborhood outside cat Saber got hit by a car yesterday. He lived about 17 years and everyone on our street in Worcester loved him. His spirit is alive and well this morning. Yep.
Thank you. So here we go again. On a Sunday when we honor our new COA class and mentors, dedicate our babies, honor the work of suicide prevention, and meet to discuss the possibility of a name change for this place. What in the hell is he going to preach about today? Well, naming. That's what I want to preach about today, which I think is the thread that runs through all that we honor this morning. Coming of age, that time when we name that which is ultimately important to us at this moment in our lives for our burgeoning youth. We dedicate our children by celebrating and honoring their names and the covenant that we make with them and their families as a community of faith. Among many things, suicide prevention is the art of helping those who are in unrelenting pain name that which grips them in order that we might find ways of confronting that pain without committing self-extinction. The students that I teach in the sociology of death and dying hear an entire lecture on suicide prevention, intervention, and postvention. And the definition that I offer them of suicide is this: suicide is a homicide where the victim and the perpetrator are the same person. It gives us an opportunity to reflect on the spectrum of emotions that are associated with the event that run from incredible sadness and sorrow to incredible rage, often in the same moment. And I want to be mindful this morning that as much as we have advertised that the service was going to include an opportunity to hear about the work of the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention, and that you would assume that I would talk about it, that this is also a topic that is not easy for people in this congregation that have been impacted by suicide. And so I want to say to you, we love you. And that if for whatever reason our service this morning or my sermon this morning triggers something in you, please do not walk away alone. Reach out to me or to any other member of this congregation and let us hold you and help you find a way to continue to cope and to be safe. And our ongoing conversation about the name of this place and the people, and this people, is about listening, for me at least, listening to the deep desires of those who truly desire to claim us as their spiritual home. All of this is about naming, to one degree or another, an act that is as ancient as humankind. So I want to turn for a moment to J.A. Taylor's commentary on what's in a name. He writes, "There is a three-word question that most of us spend our lives trying to answer, even if we don't realize it. And that question is, who are you? What comes to mind when you think of these three words? How do you answer that question? Is it a question that cuts to the core of identity? Or it's a question that cuts to the core of identity. It reveals what you believe about yourself. It reveals what you value and where you find your significance." He continues, "Some of us answer it with our vocation or our job title. Some first questions we ask unfamiliar people are, what do you do? Or where do you work? It's a common to tie our identity to our work, but what happens when our job changes or the company dissolves? If our identity is in our work, we will have a crisis when our job changes. Some of us place our identity in our family roles: husband, wife, aunt, uncle, brother, sister, mom, dad. We define ourselves through our relationships with other people, but what happens when those relationships change? What happens when death or divorce enters the picture, or when kids leave the house? Many of us have discovered relationships that are not a stable place to put our identity. Sometimes we tie our identity to behavior. Our successes, our accomplishments, our besetting sins, our sinful patterns, or even our shame. I'm an addict, and I'm a leader, are both identity statements. When we let our successes or our sins define us, it can become more difficult to embrace the identity that the ultimate has for us. Some of us were given a name based on the things that were true about us. What would that name be for you? Taylor writes, "I never minded my name until I studied its origins. My name is Jim. My name, Jim, is a derivative of James, which is a Greek version for Jacob. Jacob means supplanter or deceiver. This is fitting since two of my recovery issues are deception and manipulation, he writes. We first see the name Jacob in the book of Genesis, and Jacob comes out of the womb grasping his brother's heel, the foreshadowing of what is to come between the two brothers, where Jacob deceives his father and manipulates his older brother into selling his birthright. What that word supplant means, to supersede and replace. The origins of my name, writes Jim Taylor, are not great. But here's what you learn, he says, when you read the entire story of Jacob. The divine redeems him, calls a fearful, manipulative man into relationship, and then uses him to rescue others. And at a critical turning point in the story is renamed Jacob. Changes his name to Jacob, from Jacob to Israel, which means God fights. It's a hopeful thing. Changing a person's name shows the authority and highlights the divine blessing that is a part of that story. We see the divine do that a few times in Scripture. To plumb the origins of naming, we have only to turn to the first book of Genesis. And the Hebraic Scriptures in the second chapter of that book, then the Lord God said, it's not good for Adam should be alone. We'll make helpers as his partners. So out of the ground, the Lord God formed every animal of the field and every bird of the air and brought them to Adam to see what to call them. And whatever Adam called every living creature, that was its name. So Adam gave names to the cattle and the birds of the air and every animal of the field. The text goes on to describe a somewhat problematic incident with Adam's rib and the creation of his ultimate companion, Eve. All of this is a sermon for another time, so we shan't go there this morning. But leading up to this is the first account of the gift of naming, whose origin is from the divine intuition that it was difficult to be alone. Actually, the early rabbis found in this source a conflict among the ministering angels of all people. You know, the ones that Adam was the spitting image of. Let us create him in our image, says the text. Who's the our? The ministering angels. The Midrash that the rabbis produced of Genesis 2:19 says, when the Holy One, blessed be he, was about to create humankind, he consulted with his ministering angels who said, let us make Adam. The angels responded, what is so wonderful about Adam? I love that. I think that is a perfect kind of what is so wonderful about Adam? And so the divine brings each creature before the angels and says to them, so what is this creature's name? And they don't know. And then divine brings the creatures before Adam and says, and so what is the name here? And the answer comes, this creature, what is the name? And Adam responds, this is Shor, the Hebrew for ox, and this is Hamor, this is a donkey. Thus, according to one commentator, unlike the angels, Adam was able to perceive the spiritual components of the creative spirit that brought every animal into being and named each animal in conjunction with its spiritual configuration. This ability to perceive the spiritual components and creative spirit that brings life into being is an essential part of the power of naming, which is why it has been so much a part of the process of self-realization, self-identification, and self-empowerment for so many of us. Names are significant. While most of us are given names at birth, many that echo the presence of our ancestors or qualities of our personality that are present to those who do the naming. There are those among us and in our world that have taken great care and pains to discover that name or names which are of ultimate meaning to them. Whether it is during a time of self-realization, part of a spiritual awakening, or naming an identity that has been stifled or marginalized. as well as a number of other reasons, all having to do with claiming an identity that became important for a host of reasons. As we contemplate this morning the issue of suicide prevention, I am painfully aware that one of the most vulnerable populations in our community are our beloved transgender youth, whose rate of attempted and completed suicide is as much as 9 times that of their peers. Our beloved children, for whom naming is so very, very important, as Lauren Foster, Director of LGBTQ Concierge Services at the University of Miami Health System, explains. This research is important, she writes, because it confirms to some people what common sense should really tell us. We all, no matter our sexual or gender identity, want to be recognized by the name we associate with and are proud of. Foster explains that for transgender individuals, use of a preferred name goes beyond that. Selecting a new name is a pronouncement and affirmation of one's gender identity. It is often a pivotal step in the transition process. It is also a step rife with potential friction. When a person's dead name is used, the birth name one has publicly chosen to change, it can be accidental. Too often, though, it is done with intent, says Foster. It's the equivalent of saying for some of hearing, we don't support your transition, and we're not going to go along with it. And that can be demeaning and depressing, especially if it is coming from people close to you. It's also a type of harassment if the intent is to harm is clearly there. This is one of the reasons why the Coming of Age and Our Whole Lives programs in this congregation are life-saving opportunities. Life-saving opportunities. Places where our youth can name that which is most important to them, including their own names. But more than that, what they value, what their vision of their life is, how they envision the world in which they live and their place in it. It's a program where they find support and mentoring and a place to ask those questions and find the answers that are most meaningful to them as they identify their life goals and their values and ultimately learn to take responsibility for their choices and life trajectories. A process that begins when we as a congregation covenant with them at the time of dedication to bring all that we are and all that we bear on their well-being. And our Siding with Love and Eighth Principle groups would have us remember that naming is of ultimate importance in the struggle for equity, equality, and justice. Consider the following from M. Keith Claybrook, Jr. He writes, Black identity is the most political social identity used to identify people of African descent in the United States. In the 1960s, constitute a linchpin moment that created what it meant to be Black in the United States, tethering pre-1960s derogatory prescriptions of Blackness as an adjective and post-1960s use of Black to donate peoplehood, pride, and power. Black activists in the 1960s and 70s redefined and recreated what it meant to be Black in the United States. Their efforts demanded dignity and human respect for people of African descent. Being Black was about the right of self-naming and self-defining and self-determining and exercising individual and collective agency. This is consistent with current uses of Black in organizations such as Black Lives Matter, Black Youth Project 100, African Black Coalition, Black Alliance for a Just Immigration, and the Institute of the Black World 21st Century, to name just a few. And yet many still use a lowercase b when referring to Black people. Being Black is more than a descriptor which is denoted with the lowercase b. A Black identity is a self and collective conscious effort for people of African descent to be self-naming and self-defining en route to increasing the human respect and dignity of African people and their descendants. The racialized identifier has its origins in the scientific racism of the 18th and 19th centuries, but the ever-changing socio-historical and political context of the 1960s redefined and recreated what it meant to be Black in America. Ultimately, when referring to people of African descent as a collective racialized culture group, like other proper names, give them their respect and dignity by capitalizing the B. So when you see a banner out front of a congregation like this that says Black Lives Matter with a capital B, it is not fundamentally a political statement nor a socialist conspiracy. It's an affirmation that what challenges the values in the belief that all life matters, saying to us and the world, until Black lives matter, until brown lives matter, until transgender youth lives matter, that ultimate reality of all lives matter is not realized. All of this brings me to the topic of the name of this place and us as a people. Remembering all that we've reviewed about the sacred importance of naming and the implications it has for those who are witness to the power of choosing their own name, all are a part of this discussion. Let me be clear. I was raised in my father's church, the Church of Our Father, interestingly enough, the Unitarian Universalist Church of Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I did my internship in the first parish Unitarian Universalist of Brookline, and the first church to which I was called as minister was the First Unitarian Universalist Society of Marietta. I have done it all, right? And I have served joyfully and willingly and thoroughly engaged every single one of those communities. Not because of their name, but because of the people that are named in those congregations. So why are we having this conversation anyway? What's wrong with our name, I hear some ask. Well, I did it. Blame me if blame you must. I remember the first Easter that I came here and I did a sermon on the Christian origins of Unitarian Universalism, and I got crap for a week from members of this congregation. And there are people that will testify to this who were privy to all of that. Like the phone rang off the hook, like, are you crazy? Right? I mean, it was. So I got up in the pulpit the next Sunday, and the first thing I did was pin a big target to my chest. And I said, take your best shot. I'm not going anywhere. So let me just own the fact that I did this. I brought up the issue to the board when we began discussing the need for a new sign on our expanded territory. I've been privy in the past 22 years of conversations in various corners here and there of those who come to us out of cultural and religious traditions other than Christianity, who have talked about the struggle of belonging to a place called a church. And I've also been privy to discussions with those who have shared their enthusiasm for finding a church that means something totally different from what they have experienced in their lives. And I've also had discussions with those who have shared their enthusiasm. It seemed to me important that we're at a moment of burgeoning newness, expanding the beautiful property we have, awakening to the potential that has been realized during the depths of our pandemic, hoping to return to something that we might recognize as normal someday. God help us, or Goddess help us. And consistent with every year that I've been here, asking, how can we grow? In full transparency, I said to the board, maybe we could become something like the Universalist Unitarian Congregation of Worcester. I did that as a way of demonstrating an option, not wedding myself to a particular outcome. Like I said, I've served under multiple names. And let's be clear, I don't care what you finally decide to call this place. I'm still going to be your minister. Some of you have asked whether the congregation can change their name without risking isolation or ostracization from the UUA. Consider this from the UUA itself. According to numbers submitted a decade ago in 2011, there were then 1,046 congregations within the Unitarian Universalist Association, including the Church of the Larger Fellowship. Analysis shows that the vast majority are named for geographic locations. Most are cities or towns, but there are also congregations named for counties, valleys, mountain peaks, and ocean bays. A few are named for broader regions: Piedmont, prairie, mountain ranges, foothills, seashores, deserts, and forests. Of those with names tied to geography, at least 2 appear to be named for flowers: Columbine UU in Colorado and Wildflower Church in Texas. Around 30 are named for people: Starr King, Emerson, Thoreau, May, Thorpe, Goodell, Jefferson, Channing, Davies, Murray, Fallon, Parker, Servetus, Eliot, Dix, Pullman, Atkinson, Payne, Priestley, Cooper, Reeb, and Brown. 22 congregations use All Souls as a part of their name. The oldest congregation with that name is the Unitarian Church of All Souls in New York City, founded in 1819. With more than 1,000 members, it's one of the UUA's largest congregations, and in the past decade, 3 congregations have taken the All Souls appellation. Small number of congregations have taken names that evoke more than geography. Some express inclusiveness. There's Tapestry, a UU congregation in California, and Mosaic, UU congregation in Florida. There are several uses of Open Circle or Circle as a part of the name. Several use People's Church, and there are a couple that use Free Church. Other congregations have adopted religious imagery. There is the Chalice UU congregation in California, plus at least one that includes Spirit of Life in its name. There's also an Epiphany Community Church, a Christian UU congregation. Of the total 1,046 congregations, 752 use both Unitarian and Universalist as a part of the name. 161 just use Unitarian, 58 only use Universalist, and 75 use neither. As for church, 473 use that identifier compared with 271 fellowships, 142 congregations, and 102 societies. The newest UU congregations have tended to stick with geography when choosing names. Of the 64 new congregations a decade ago that were welcomed into the UUA between 2000 and 2011, 47 chose names that tie them to a specific city or region. The benefit in that is that including the city's name instantly tells the seeker where the congregation is located. Another 10 or so chose spiritual, inspirational, or aspirational names such as Harmony UU Church, New Hope Congregation, Wellsprings Congregation, UU Peace Fellowship, Open Circle UU Fellowship, Pathways Church, and Gaia Community. Clearly, there's no right way to name a UU group other than the rightness of the process by which the name is chosen. There are those of you who have reflected on the idea of congregation as a primary identifier, which for some maintains the religious intent of our gathering while opening us up to a wider array of those who are religiously oriented. Others have named community as a way of expressing our purpose. We are a community which serves many and varying ideas, ideals, and interests. And for those who would prefer this less religious identifier, this is a plus. The poll we took last summer reflects that we are about a third in each camp: church, congregation, and community. I would expect nothing less here. Nothing less. Which makes me wonder if perhaps more conversation is important so that those with a strong feeling around this can be heard, and perhaps there are other creative ideas to be considered. In the past few weeks, I've begun to wonder whether we might embrace the spectrum of possibility and ambiguity that lives among the choices mentioned. After all, we are the Unitarian Universalist Church of Worcester, a congregation that covenants a congregation of love, hope, and justice that covenants to inspire people to take on the challenges of a changing world, which often uses the tagline, building a community where all people are united. What if we became UUC3W? Oh, you laugh, right? With a tagline that says, where church, congregation, and community unite as one. And encourage those who identify with any one of those particular words to use them as robustly as possible in describing this space, especially to those of you who think this might be a place for them too. So let's continue to talk and to name and to be that place which inspires us to take on the challenges of a changing world. Amen, and blessed be. Would you please join together in our sung litany this morning? And I'll invite you to remain seated for our, in our teal hymnals, number 1061. For so the children come, and so they've been coming, always the same way they come, born of the seed of man and woman. No angels heralded their beginnings, no prophets predict their future courses, no wise people see a star to show them where to find the babe that will save humankind. Yet each night a child is born as a holy night. Fathers and mothers sitting beside their children's cribs feel glory in the sight of a new life beginning. They ask, where and how will this new life end, or will it ever end? Each night a child is born is a holy night, a time for singing, a time for wondering, a time for worshiping, which has now come to an end. Given the lateness of the hour, let us forego our final hymn, having just sung ourselves to this holy and sacred moment. And as we leave this place, let us carry with us the reminder that we too are held in community, that we are loved, that we are nurtured into our best selves, and this is a place where all can find their place in the larger scheme of things. Go in peace, go in faith, go in hope, but most of all, go in love. Amen, and blessed be.